It's afloat. And it flies. Big questions from Bermuda. A big step forward. A game changer. A promising double act. And how to build a super maxi. Plus, plenty more in Docktalk. But first, when the first images of the new foiling monohull America's Cup boats did the rounds on the internet, there were wide eyes aplenty. When the real things hit the water, many questioned whether the Cup had simply gone too far. How could this ever relate to the rest of the sport? Shortly after the Kiwis had won again, there were new images of a smaller version, the AC40, that would form part of the next Cup cycle. And then came this, Flying Nikka, an offshore version designed to sail in the maxi fleet. For some, that was the last straw. Things were clearly getting out of hand. Grand Prix racing had completely lost touch. But I'm pleased to say that well over 100,000 of you felt rather differently when we ran the piece on her designer Mark Mills in episode 13. Well, now 10 months later and Flying Nikka is up and running for real. So I called up Mark to find out how things have been going. So Mark, great to see you again. We last chatted, it's about 10 months ago actually, I was just looking back. It doesn't seem that long, but it was July last year that we were talking about Flying Nikka, and it went down incredibly well with the Planet Sail audience. A lot of people are really interested. We had a lot of comments about it.
Oh, great.
So that's all good news. But things have moved on quite a bit since then, haven't they? Could you just start off by giving us a rundown, just an overview of where you are now?
So the boat was completed at King Marine about 3 weeks ago. It was moved to their base in Valencia by the water and mated with the wings and arms and rudders and keels, and launched about 2 weeks ago now. And since then we've had about 4 full days of sail trials spread out over the 2 weeks.
How did that go?
Phenomenally well, unexpectedly well, given we have some very good people involved in the Flying Nikka team. Francesco Mongelli from Luna Rossa, Mickey Costa, the project manager, who bring a lot of experience of a really high level project, and who were bringing very methodical, careful steps. But as it turned out, really, once we went sailing, we went through all of our various tests really quickly and smoothly, got on foils in lighter conditions than we had expected. And every day after that has just been learning something new and useful and moving forward. So there's an element of touching wood about that, because at some point that trajectory, I'm sure, isn't going to continue. But up to this stage, it's really been great.
And so what kind of breeze were you sailing in to start with then? It's notoriously light in Valencia, isn't it?
Well, they have a good sea breeze that can come in the afternoon. And so the first day was probably perfect, so sort of 9 to 11, 12, maybe at the tops. And then over the next couple of days, the key first step, once we'd made sure that all the structural tests were done, the first real important stage to go through was to get the flight control tuned. So there's a lot of calibration and adjustment to get the flight control to work with the boat. And because it's the first of its kind, really, the flight control guy, a very smart guy called Ricardo Vencatel, who'd worked with Luna Rossa, was working on getting it to respond in the way that we wanted. By the third day, we had the most breeze we saw, which was 13, 14 steady, and then a while at 15, maybe a touch of 16. And that was really a great opportunity to suddenly expand the speed envelope and not have, foiling at that point is very easy to get up on foils and get going. And it was a whole new sort of bit of the wind range for us. And then the last day, which was last Wednesday, was actually the lightest we'd seen, probably only got to 9 at the most. And that was a whole new learning experience. We ended up out there with the J2 up because we hadn't seen the smaller jib. And yet we still got foiling in 9, maybe at the max 10 with the smaller jib up. So huge learning curves going on the whole time.
And what kind of speeds were you clocking up?
Well, the peak speed so far was about 30 on the day it got to 16. So that was good. But the really interesting thing is how fast can you go in, for example, 10, 11, 12, where you're just it's the lower end of the foiling wind range. And those speeds are consistently 20, 22-ish, 24-ish. And then it depends if you're trying to go upwind. Clearly, you're accepting a lower top end speed. But we were seeing some reasonable upwind VMGs during the testing. So everything it's a learning curve, no matter where you're going. If you're reaching for boat speed, it's one learning curve. If you're trying to go upwind, it's another. Where I think 4 days is a very early stage in the testing process. So.
What was there anything that, apart from the fact that so far, touch wood, as you say, things went remarkably smoothly, what has surprised you so far?
That we got on the water on schedule at all. With the year that we've had, COVID, King Marine did an exceptional job with Mickey Costa project managing it to launch within basically on the schedule that we'd agreed a year earlier. It's just extraordinary. The next thing was the early takeoff. We really, on that first day we just went out to do displacement testing. Just do all the basics in light, medium breeze. And to be foiled by the end of it was extraordinary. But the third bit for me is the sensation you have on the boat is, I haven't done any foiling before. So for me, it really was remarkably calm. You don't really know when you've lifted off, and you don't really have any great sensation of speed, and it's not immediately easy to see what your ride height is, except that you're reading the data. You're sitting there with a phone in your hand, looking at, we've taken off. So how calm it was. Yeah, I really think that was unexpected for me.
Mm. And it is very, very early days, obviously, but has this sort of already sort of modified your view or made you think about what's possible going forward? Has it changed your view of the future?
Yes and no. This is much more benign is too strong a word, but this is much more manageable than I had originally expected. I think the keel, it plays a huge role in detuning the level of the frequency of concern compared to America's Cup boat. So I'm sure that this is a much more accessible solution than we had realized at the outset. Do I think that it's actually going to become more than a small part of the sailing market? No, I'm sure that's not the case. The expense, the complexity, all those things are always going to keep it, I think, as a very interesting segment of the market.
Yeah. And what are the goals for the project? I mean, you explained them last year, but just remind us what the owner wants to do with the boat.
So he is a vice president of the IMA, and so he really wants to be able to compete in the International Maxi Association, and he really wants to be able to compete in maxi events. So that sets the size of the boat. That's why it's little over 60 feet. But his real passion is offshore racing in the Med. So the boat is actually going to get delivered to Italy next week so that it can be there for the start of his 151 Milia race that he started. But Giralia, those sort of, in our case, Category 3 offshore races are exactly what this was designed for. And I think, again, having done a bit of sailing, not in 25 knots yet, not offshore in 1 meter seas, but my feeling is that the boat is actually going to be very capable in those sort of conditions.
That's very impressive, actually, because I was thinking back to when I was looking at the images and the pictures, and with that in mind, thinking back to L'Hydroptère, the trimaran that has been around since God was a boy, at least it feels that way, but certainly around since the 80s. And the objective of that foiling try was very much for offshore sailing. And people back then thought it was a bit nuts. And they did actually do quite a lot of offshore sailing in that boat, more than people gave it credit for.
And to be fair to them, they were really envisioning transatlantic or really long distance races. But they were doing it in there was no context for it. They didn't have to meet any rules. They were just French and able to do something extraordinary. Our view is much more that the boat is actually able to be a bona fide entrant in a Category 3 offshore race. So we're going to pass all of the stability requirements. We've got all of the safety requirements in place. The boat, other than the fact that it sails on foils for the majority of the time, otherwise is a completely legitimate entry. Now, I think race organizers have a whole new chapter of concerns that they're going to have to work through about how you include a boat like this. But that's very much the owner's vision, is that somebody needs to get started with bringing this boat into the mainstream, and that's where he wants to go with it.
How does it go? What about rating-wise? I mean, it must... I hate to think what the rating is. I mean, and what do you rate it for? I mean, we were talking about this the other day about international moths. I mean, obviously, under the Portsmouth yardstick system, they are rated for their performance on foils, but the difference between what happens on foils and what happens in displacement mode is massive. And it's going to be the same with you as well, or with Flying Nikka.
Yeah, and this is a long conversation. I mean, the short answer is that ORC have been very willing to take it on, and they've been working on it. And as soon as the boat gets to Italy, it's going to go through an ORC measurement. And they've been working with 3D files we gave them earlier, so that they're sort of ready to turn the handle and give us maybe an ORC experimental certificate. I'm not sure that it's going to be a mainstream certificate, but it may be. IRC also have been very interested and willing to work with us. I think they're a little less confident about how they might issue a rating. So I think we are expecting something from ORC in the short term. I think with IRC it may take a little longer for them to work through how they want to handle this. But the core point you made, I think, is entirely correct. With displacement boats, you have a range of variables that we all know very well and understand: weight, wetted surface area, sail area, draft, that you put into a formula and you get a rating. When the boat goes foiling, most of those drop away. They're not relevant. And you're just dealing with foil efficiency, foil area, and rig efficiency, and to some extent, even area doesn't become so important. So it becomes much simpler in a sense, but I think all foiling boats maybe fit into a narrower range of performance than the range of normal displacement boats do. And it kind of, I don't want to say it makes them unrateable, but so many factors, really, like how clean the foil surface is going to clearly make a difference between two foiling boats, and no rating rule could take account of that. What does that make for yacht racing? I don't know if it does, but we're starting a whole new chapter of finding out how that works. I think one of the arguments I would make is that it may lend itself, these sort of boats may lend themselves to a one design type class for a number of reasons. I think most race organizers have real safety concerns, I would, about letting these things mix in an open class with conventional boats. I don't expect that to happen. And so if you went with a one design class, everybody who was playing in it would understand what's going on, would have signed a waiver accepting that anything that goes wrong in that context is going to go seriously wrong. And then it doesn't matter. All the boats are going to be similar enough that things like ratings aren't going to be a relevant factor. So that would seem to me maybe the easiest first line of development for them.
It does seem like you've got to approach this project from a point of view of doing it for the fun of it, rather than with your eye on the prize and the silverware. Really, it's not that kind of a project, is it? It's about pushing the envelope. And
clearly at the moment, yeah. But how else do we get to a point where it does, 5 years, 10 years, whenever it is that they aren't unusual, and in their own world that they do start sailing under a handicap or something like that? You have to start at the beginning.
It does look like there's the beginnings of a whole new genre of foiling boats, isn't there? There's yours, there's the AC40, there's the Persico 40. So that's three groups already that are there, and you can't help feeling. I mean, is that how you see it? Do you see this as being? It's almost like a completely new discipline in sailing, in the way it's almost like we've had monohulls, multi-hulls, cats, tries, and this is just another major category.
I certainly think it has a lot of parallels with multi-hulls, and in a way, I think last time we talked about windsurfing, and when windsurfing arrived in sailing, it was threatening to destroy it, and then as it turned out, it didn't. And I'm sure that's the case here. I think it's going to be like trimarans in particular. It's a very competitive, interesting, exciting niche, and for the people who want to do that, fantastic. It's definitely going to grow. So I don't think it's going to go away, but.
Excellent. Well, it looks really exciting. I'm so pleased it's on the water and working. I'm really, really pleased for you. I can't wait to see it in the flesh.
Thank you.
You're going to need quite a quick rib to keep up with it, I guess.
It certainly has. They have a big rib for that. So, yeah, they're ready. But, yeah, as soon as you can get there, come out for a ride.
Love to. Brilliant. Great to talk to you as always, Mark. Thanks very much for your time.
Talk to you soon.
Cheers. While we're on the subject of foiling, there's been a big step forward for windsurfers. In fact, many think it's a game changer. So much so that board manufacturer IQ put out a video. I remember the first foiling tack in the America's Cup ahead of the Bermuda event. While it was impressive, it certainly wasn't slick, but look at them now. So this really could change the game for windsurfing and allow the boards to do what they've never really been able to do before, going upwind quickly and close to the wind. And that's going to change the look of this class come the games. Ditching the plan for offshore racing in the next Olympic Games came as a big blow, but the L30 is one of several projects that ploughed ahead regardless. The Olympic focus for the design meant that it always had double-handed racing in mind, but it can also be crewed with 4 or 5. She can be raced as a one design or in handicap fleets, and with the option for a deeper keel, she can race offshore too. She's designed to be easy to trail and simple to rig, launch and recover. And once afloat, she's said to be a bit of a pocket rocket. With the help of a trim tab on the keel, the L30 can hit upwind speeds of 6.8 knots in flat water and has been clocked at over 20 knots downwind in big seas. So while there may be no offshore category in the next games, the L30 is still one to watch. Delivering performance in both short-handed and fully crewed configurations was the design brief for Ben Rogerson's 41-footer. The initial inspiration was the vibrant and competitive short-handed scene among the Class 40s. But when it comes to racing this style of boat under IRC with a full crew of 6, Rogerson and his team believe that there's a gap in the market, and the BRYD 41 is their answer. This is a 41-footer that's been designed to be as suitable for double-handed sprints as it is for classic 600-milers or transatlantic marathons. The deck layout and dual-pit cockpit configuration are at the heart of satisfying this goal. And while the sail plan can be optimised for IRC or ORC and include masthead top-down furling A sails, a fractional A5 and a masthead code 0, this is a boat that can be handled almost entirely from the cockpit. Tempted? If the versatility of being able to sail short-handed or fully crewed is your thing, there's plenty out there to choose from. Earlier this year we saw plans for the Aeolus P30. Now she's afloat and has undergone extensive trials. The results and feedback have been good, which has led to the announcement of a new bigger sister, the Aeolus P45. And while this 45-footer is aimed at short-handed offshore sailing, she's also been designed to be suitable for a crew of 6. The classic 600-mile offshore events are typical of the kind of races that Gente had in mind for the P45. But he also sees a future in performance cruising too. But in either configuration, performance is at the top of the list. She's a carbon prepreg construction. She has a retractable 2.9 fin and bulb keel with a ballast ratio of 50%, along with 200 litres of water ballast. But the P45 is also available either as a stripped out Grand Prix version or with a lightweight, fully fitted interior constructed from foam sandwich carbon pre-preg. Season 3 for SailGP kicked off in Bermuda a few weeks ago. And if you've yet to catch up with what happened, look away now and follow the link to the highlights feature. But if you did watch, you'll no doubt have some questions, such as, are we likely to see the Japan team back? The shortage of a 10th boat, which is still in build, makes it sound like it could be a while before we see Nathan Outridge's team back on the water. Some are even asking whether they'll be back at all. Whatever the outcome, they won't be racing at the next event in Chicago, which is not only a blow for them, but also for the event. Since the start, they spent much of their time at the front of the fleet. When Phil Robertson moved from the Spanish to the new Canadian team, he was actually aboard the old Japanese boat. Plus, he had Japan team's Chris Draper trimming the wing for him. Little surprised perhaps that they were going so quickly straight out of the blocks. You may also be asking what's going on with the Kiwis. Victorious in the America's Cup, but they're finding it pretty tough to win a SailGP race. Is this because the super strict one design element to the F50s mean they no longer have the technical advantage of a quicker boat? Or is there something else going on? Burling and Tuke's Olympic medals and World Championship titles in the 49er demonstrate that they know how to win on a level playing field. So the lack of performance in SailGP is pretty weird. Ditto Jimmy Spithill. Yes, the American team has had a poor run of luck last season, and you might argue that the dice still isn't rolling in their favour. But they still don't seem to have the form we'd expect, given the level of foiling experience aboard their boat and Spithill's reputation for fighting back. Bermuda also saw Ben Ainsley stuck on the wrong side of the rules once again, in a situation that could easily have ended in a collision, something that the event simply can't afford. Which in turn is why the French were given a black flag in a reckless barging move.
No room for contact, the French at the top, the French are trying to barge in, wow, that was punchy as the line went clear, penalty on the French boat, they're going to need to drop behind the fleet.
And then there's the new Swiss team. There's certainly some catching up to do there, but that's where SailGP is pretty smart. The combination of a full-size moving simulator and openly available data from all the boats means that the tools for learning and catching up are all there. So as we get stuck into the third season, it seems that you can watch SailGP on a number of levels. You can simply watch the best in the business lock horns in some high-speed racing on foils, but you can also see how levelling the playing field reveals things we never knew about the world's best. Next stop, the Windy City, Chicago, in June. Over the last few months, we've been following the progress of the Kiwis and their land speed record project, and now it's taken to the tarmac.
It's quite a surreal feeling, to be honest, to land back in Auckland, and pretty much 12 months since we departed. Something that I've been dreaming about for quite a while now. It's been really tricky just looking down sort of a Zoom screen, whilst you sort of feel semi-connected to the daily goings on. It not being physically present is quite difficult. So absolutely can't wait to get into the base, can't wait to see everyone, and really looking forward to getting into this final phase of the project, you know, being physically here in New Zealand. This is the time I think it's trash, you know, on the... Yeah. Absolutely brilliant to finally get here to Auckland and the base and check out all the componentry that's coming together for the land yacht. It's been a huge amount of parts that have sort of arrived, and to see all the bits and pieces in the flesh is absolutely excellent. And really now it's just a matter of going and checking out the actual craft itself, and over the next couple of weeks put all those componentries together, and look forward to getting into some testing over the next couple of weeks. Good to be able to stop sometimes with these sorts of projects, eh?
Yeah, so that's all we need there, and then you've got your 2 pump trucks. One here and one here.
Day one, to be honest, it's about putting it together here and what we're doing. We've put it all together in the workshop, but bringing it together here, because when we're out on the lake, we've basically got nothing, we're on our own. So it's actually kind of neat to have to recreate ways to put the vehicle together. All those principles that we use when we're rigging our boat down at the beach, we're going to use the same principles here. Capsize the boat, put the wing in, bring it back upright, stabilise it, and then from there, basically she's ready to sheet on.
Yeah, quite excited to say the least, but whilst exciting, you've got to keep it chilled and keep a lid on it. Going to ease ourselves into it and just try and tick as many boxes off we can in the sort of about the hour window that we've got here out at Whanaupai, so looking forward to it.
I'm ready, mate, we're good.
That was super cool, It's perfect, we learned heaps. I mean, just the relationship between the flap angle and the wing loading, awesome day, super happy with how it's gone. So the boys done an awesome job, and the design of it and the build of it's been incredible. So to get it out here for all the guys today has been, sort of one of those moments that everyone's been looking forward to for a long time, certainly me. So very successful, very, very pleased. So I'll sleep well tonight.
You want to put the wing right through the just slowly.
Okay, happy to send it.
Okay, going up to 140, Glenn. Roger that. 140.
We've actually got a light nor'easter here today. It's only about 5 knots, so just a quick little tune in there with some of the steering changes we've implemented over the last day. Basically, in the interest of getting our Auckland-based program signed off. So we're just going to go in now and shorten the craft up, changing the distance between the rear wheels and the centre of effort, and this will have a big effect on the balance of the steering. So see how we go there. We have a section in the back end here where we can move the rear wheels forward 1 metre. It's quite a big change based on the balance. There might be an increment within this change. We can modify the composite structure reasonably easily to accommodate that, and being able to just get that answer before we head off to Australia is a big one.
I might need the full length of the runway, mate, just if I'm going a bit quicker, that's all. I'll see how it goes.
Copy, that's fine to go full length.
Copy, send it. Or sort of easterly direction.
Fine, here, 2, 1, clear.
Really well balanced in this configuration, just feels like you can just do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, copy that.
I feel really comfortable in the short setting, and I think it feels like a definite improvement to me. So very, very happy with how that's feeling.
It's a balance thing, and every run we're just learning.
Effectively, it's like moving the dagger board of the boat further aft. So we've actually moved the centre of effort, the centre of mass, and the centre of lateral resistance much closer together, so it feels totally different than it did before, and I actually quite like it. So it'll be interesting to sail in some more breeze and see how much load we can get out of these rear tyres.
Last year in the Ocean Race Europe, the non-foiling offshore team Germany demonstrated how, when it gets light and tricky, a conventional IMOCA 60 is still a pretty potent machine. After winning the event, we asked owner Robert Stanczyk whether he was now thinking about the big one, racing around the world in the Ocean Race. He was quite coy at the time, but now it seems he's made up his mind and changed his boat.
We are very happy to begin this story with this boat and with the crew team, with the offshore team Germany team. And I think that is a learning for all, and we like to learn, so it's great beginning of story. I have met the team, the offshore team Germany during the Ocean Race Europe for my first experience with the crew last year. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's already a year ago, but it's still very present. I would call myself, or probably the team, still a newcomer. But yeah, it was a very overwhelming race, and very surprising that we finished so successful. So I'm super motivated and keen to get the chance to prove that again in the big one, in the ocean race around the world.
Just to be in the ocean race is something special in the first place. This is amazing. And this is what is driving us. And especially in the next edition, which has this outstanding Southern Ocean race leg.
And we are now with a new boat, with fastest boat, and I think it's a great experience for the boat, for me, and we will push the boat hard with the team, so that is an important way to do a good performance on the Vendée Globe after.
When the other teams are just getting created, we already know each other, which is a big advantage, and I'm very optimistic that we will do well. We had the philosophy of bringing different sailors with different background together and merge the skills and bring that to a very strong all-round unit. And I think we proved well in the Ocean Race Europe, and yeah, we want to keep this team for the big race.
Well, we have been working on the start for the ocean race for 7 years now, and I can let you know that we didn't work that hard to stop now. Working for our goal, to be at the start line in Alicante next year.
For many of us, hoisting a sail and marking the halyard position with a black marker pen will be as close as we get to calibrating the luff tension. But a new system developed jointly between Cyclops Marine and North Sails promises to take the guesswork out of the process. The Smart Luff system is based around an electronic strain gauge that will help you achieve the optimum shape for a headsail or code 0 by monitoring the actual load in the luff of the sail. The system consists of a Bluetooth-enabled sensor attached to the tack of the headsail or code 0, which connects wirelessly to both the smartphone and the yacht's instruments to provide live load data in real time. Because North Sails are designed with a specific luff tension in mind for certain wind strengths, Smart Luff allows those settings to be achieved precisely on the water and monitored constantly, leaving no excuses not to change gear. Compared to the ropes and wires of the past, stretch as we knew it is a thing of the past. Modern materials such as Dyneema have all but ruled it out. And yet for some, even the tiniest amount of stretch can cause things to go pear-shaped. Going for larger diameter ropes with their higher aerodynamic drag is rarely a solution, especially for high-performance foiling boats, where the apparent wind can often be 40 knots or more. So, to address this, Robline and New England Ropes looked at other industries and applications for the answer. And for Olympic NACRA 17 sailor Santiago Langer, they found some of the solutions with ropes used for cranes and TP52s. And while matching the cover to the core, resolving handling issues, kink resistance and chafe meant it wasn't simple, the result is Robline Dinghy Star Pro Ultra STS, a long name for a product that's aimed at staying short. In the last Sydney-Hobart race, Jules Hall and Jan Scholten won the two-handed division in all three handicapped systems aboard their J99 Disco Trooper Contender sailcloth. And if they'd been scored in the fully crew category, they'd have won overall in ORCI. Impressive stuff. Their mainsail and jibs were made from Contender sailcloth's ZZ Jet Black Aramid laminates. These laminates are optimised for lightweight and durability by balancing adhesive content with fibre loading to the lightest weight possible without sacrificing bond strength. To achieve this, high modulus Twaron 2200 fibre was incorporated into the warp and high modulus Technora in the fill before the final laminate was achieved between two black film layers. And for Hall and Scholten, there was no doubt that it formed the foundations for success. Norwegian Bavaria dealer Claes Eliasson had a question. How much faster would a Bavaria 38 go if you pared down the kit on board and replaced the standard wardrobe with some high-performance sails? To find out, he enlisted the help of designer Maurizio Casuti and North Sails Norway. The goal was to see just how much additional performance they could get from a standard boat without resorting to extreme or expensive modifications. So, from the bathing platform to the bow thruster, anything that wasn't strictly necessary didn't make it on board. And although the weight savings came readily, they resisted the temptation to invest them in performance items, such as a deeper, heavier keel. Instead, they kept true to the standard boat and focused on improving the efficiency of the sail plan. It's early days, but the first signs are that the performance and handling has been transformed. And while the project isn't about racing, the C38 Sport has been on the podium several times already. Now, as you'll know, last season we followed Dee Caffari and James Herrera in the short-handed season. And this season, I'm pleased to say, Dee's back with us. And your season's changed a bit, hasn't it? I mean, the game's moved on for both of you. The game's moved on for James, and you're doing something different, which we'll come on to in a minute. But you started this season off in more familiar territory, I think.
Yes, I was back on an IMOCA and it was lovely, but it's super exciting news for James. He's sold his 3300 Gen 2. The boat will still be racing in the UK circuit, so it's still going to be competition out there for everybody. It's in good hands, but he's moved on. He's purchased an IMOCA, and I went to Lorient in France and helped deliver it back to the UK with him. So we took 2 sailors from the Gen 2 youth sailing programme that he's put together as well. They came on the delivery back, and they hadn't even sailed overnight before, so that was super exciting for them. And it was really nice for me to be back on an IMOCA, familiar territory, and it brought back a lot of old memories. And for James, he was like, you know, kid in a sweetie shop. It was like a new toy to play with, and he stepped on board and was like, it's a whole lot of boat to tame. And I said, very soon it'll feel just like a 3300. That's when you know you've got it under control.
Well, you say he was like a kid in the sweetie shop, which I suspect he was, but looking at the video that you made of it, I could see you were quite taken by it as well. Anyway, have a look.
Now, Freya, you're part of Gen 2's youth sailing programme, and you thought you were doing an Easter jog race on a 3300, is that correct?
That's correct. We were supposed to be going out on the 3300s, and James sent us a message and said, would you prefer to go out on the IMOCA? Do you mind? And we went, yes please. So we got to do 300 miles on this boat through the night and everything.
So what's been new for you? Obviously 300 miles is probably the longest you've been at sea for.
Definitely. Yeah, and just sailing through the night, and we had some fog earlier, so sailing through the fog as well, and how you navigate through that. Just everything on a much bigger boat.
Cool, the grin says it all. And Michael, for you, similar new experience?
Yeah, no, it was pretty awesome. Got the message Sunday night, and yeah, had to book the flights Monday and get out and really do it. It's an awesome opportunity to have, and love to be back here again.
Pretty good trade, some past 3300 for an IMOCA, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Right, James, 300 miles from Lorient, just coming in the Needles Channel, and you got a big grin on your face.
Yeah, it's lovely. We've for most of the delivery it's been quite light wind, so this is the strongest we've had. It's, how windy is it? 12, 14 knots now?
Yeah, 14.
So yeah, it's good. Perfect timing. We're here early, which is nice as well. And yeah, just super excited to have the boat base now back in the UK and begin training.
It's been so good to be back on an IMOCA. I realise how much I've missed it, and realise how much I haven't forgotten, which has been pretty cool. I made James make sure he played with all the systems while we were offshore so that he can grow in confidence. It's a whole new beast for him, and we had a lot of fun. Sadly, the trip was upwind all the way home, can you believe it? light winds, so it was good starting place, but we didn't get to play with the downwind wardrobe, and that would have been a bit more fun, but there's plenty of time for that. But the boat's back in one piece, he's back in one piece, and it's the start of a very long journey, but an exciting one.
So that looked like a lot of fun. Now, just before we get on to what you're up to this year, on the subject of IMOCA 60s, there seems to be an extraordinary amount of activity in the scene, and we're not even, well, we're only we are 3 years away from the next Vendée Globe, and already there are loads of boats out there.
It's moved at such pace. There was such momentum behind the last edition, and people were excited. I don't know whether it was the lockdown fever or people still enjoying a yacht race around the world that they were virtually doing with these skippers. But there's going to be 40 places available for the race in 2024, more than there's ever been. And the appetite hasn't gone anywhere. There's a number of new builds in production now. They're slowly coming out the shed. So this year we're going to start seeing them come onto the race course. And there's still some in line. And there's that IMOCA shuffle at the end of a Vendée, that 12 months afterwards. We call it the IMOCA shuffle, where it all changes hands.
Like transfer season.
It is. It's a little bit like transfer season. So everybody's getting their hands on a new boat and understanding how it works and stuff. And also that original kind of line of IMOCAs where people want to progress from, that opens up a new breeding ground for new skippers to come in, which is exactly what James is trying to do. He's got his hopes on 2024 on his boat, and it's a 2007 boat. You know, I remember it from my race. So, yeah, you know, I think it's exciting, but it'd be definitely a fleet to watch.
Is it, when does the qualification start then? Do you have to be in it sort of now to stand a chance for qualifying?
Yeah, the qualifications have already started. They've just had the Bermuda 1000 race, and there's a Vendée Arctic race, and then of course this year is the ending with the Route de Rome, which is a massive race, solo race transatlantic. Next year is more double-handed activity, and then the following year we're on for that Vendée Globe. So time is ticking really quickly, but yes, they're accumulating those miles and those qualification races to allow them to be eligible for one of those 40 places.
The Vendée Arctic looks superb this year, doesn't it? All the way around the outside of Iceland. Quite
It's a long way north.
It is a long way north. So, tell us a bit about your project. What are you up to this season?
Well, I haven't left the double-handed fleet, and I haven't left the Sunfast 3300 either. I really enjoyed racing them last year, and as we know now, James has moved on, so I was kind of left adrift. But for Shirley Robertson and Henry Bombi, the same thing's happened. Henry's moved on and he's racing with Ran. He's the navigator and watch captain on there. So she was left without a partner. And Nigel Colley from Sea Ventures, he put two and two together, and we're racing one of his boats, and we've got the season ahead, and our ambition is the Rorke races leading up to the Round Britain and Ireland race. I wasn't one to just spend my time racing in the Channel. I was like, if we're going to race this year, then we've got to do the big one.
Yeah, there's a lot of people focusing on that though, isn't there? Because it is a special race, isn't it?
It is a special race. It doesn't happen that often. It is pretty tough. I've done it a few times, even held and hold the record. But it's a real challenge, and it's quite a little boat to go quite a long way in. And
it's non-stop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just in case people are getting confused with the one that used to stop. Well, it still does stop, one of them.
Yes, that is the confusion. There is a race that does stop, and it's a compulsory 48-hour stop. This one is non-stop. It should theoretically go clockwise around Britain and Ireland, but depending on the weather, it has in recent years actually gone anti-clockwise. But yeah, so we'll see what the weather holds, what Rorke decides, and in August, on that Sunday at the end of Cows Week, we're set off, and it's just going to take me a little bit longer than it did last time.
Yeah. So what have you done so far? It's early days, I guess. You haven't been out that much, but
early days. We have one race under our belt. We were hoping to start the season with the Cervantes race, but that we weren't ready. We literally launched on the Thursday night, and the race was Saturday morning. And Friday, when we went sailing, the jobs list was quite long, and we were like, we're not ready for this. So we actually spent that weekend getting jobs done and ticked off, and we just took part in the Gingham Bowl race. We're still talking to each other. The boat's still in one piece, we're still in one piece, so it was a good start. But there's so much to learn. It's a whole new sail wardrobe, and getting that confidence in where those angles are with the right sails takes a little bit of time. getting the rig set up how we're happy with, and just understanding a new boat. This has got a few more aspects to it than I'm used to with Gen 2. Both of us come from sailing previous 3300, so we're bringing both our experiences together on this 3300, and we'll get there. I think it's going to be exciting.
It's very interesting looking at it from your campaign from the outside, because you're two very different characters, or you come from very different parts of the sport, don't you? I mean, you're very much the offshore person, and Shirley's very much sort of Olympic, and you know, that level of competition and that style of racing as well. Do you see that as an asset, that you're two sides of the same coin?
I'm really confident that we've got really complementary skills. As you say, we come from the two extremes in our sport, and coming together, I think, I'll help develop her offshore confidence and knowledge, and likewise, you know, hopefully I'll learn a lot of top tips about making a boat go fast, because you know, Shirley can't drive a boat slowly, so that's the good news. And I think we're learning about each other as we sail now leading up to the big race. It's probably going to be between 10 days and 2 weeks. It's a long time to spend with someone on a little boat. We need to understand how to communicate with each other to get the best from each other. So that's part of the process as well as we're building up to the race.
Don't forget to video it.
I'm going to try my best. We will be documenting the whole process, and obviously I'll share my insights.
Yes, well, we look forward to that, because they were very well received last time. So exciting to hear, and good luck with it all.
Thank you.
Now, as you may have seen earlier in the year, in Planet Sail, we showed you how you could build your own J-class yacht out of Lego. Well, if you were taken by that but fancy something a little bit more sporty, here's an idea. In episode 17, we ran a piece about how students Carl Kumsted and his friend Willie Honesay had created the designs for a J-class yacht that could be made out of Lego. Well, now they've gone a stage further and created a Lego model of the Supermaxi Comanche. It's 85 centimetres long and 140 centimetres high, and uses more than 2,800 virtual bricks. So if you're after a boat building project that doesn't include resin and vacuum bags and can be safely performed in your living room, email Carl and Willie. Alternatively, you could head to their crowdfunding campaign. Once again, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Please do keep spreading the word. And on that subject, we're currently running at over 220,000 views a month, which is absolutely fantastic. So thank you for that as well. It makes a huge difference to what we can do with the channel going forwards. And if those are the kind of numbers that you, your business, or indeed your event likes the sound of, let's talk. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, until next time.